Welcome to the Swim Chats podcast. I'm Shona Riddell, a writer, former journalist and ocean swimmer from Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand. For each episode, I'll feature a different guest from our swim community. They'll be dippers, adventure swimmers, coaches and conservationists with one thing in common. They all love being in the sea. So whether you're a swimmer yourself or just interested in stories about the ocean and people expanding their comfort zones, I hope you enjoy these swim chats. Please hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Toi Saia'ana is a Wellington swimmer and senior business analyst who came to swimming later in life. She was born in Samoa, moved to New Zealand when she was 18 months old. Her early life story is a little like Moana's in that she wasn't allowed to swim at the beginning because her family was worried about water safety. So she learned to swim later on. And in a short time, she went from being barely able to swim at all to swimming open water events, navigating choppy seas, and improving her technique to overcome injury. Toi has a quiet wisdom and is generous with her knowledge when it comes to swimming. She's constantly learning and figuring out what's important to her in the water, and she's one of my swim friends and role models. Hi, Toi. Thank you for joining us on Swim Chats today.
Thanks, Shona. Thanks for asking me.
Let's start with the most important question, which is your first name, which is spelled T-O-Y. Would you like to share how you were given your name, where it came from?
Okay, that's a good question, and that's a question I always get asked. Thanks for that, Shona. So Toi is so I'm of Samoan ethnicity. And people often think, is Toi short for something, some long Samoan name? And it isn't. So Toi is an English name that was given to me by my father. So when I was born, when he looked at me, he was trying to describe, in his Samoan language, describe a name that would be suitable to me, which was something that is equivalent that you give to a child. And what you give to a child is obviously a toy, but in the Samoan language, the equivalent is mea lofa, which means gift of love. And so that's why he gave me the name Toi, because for him, I'm his gift of love. So there we go.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
And just for context for the listeners, Toi and I discussed this earlier and decided we would open with this question because Toi gets asked this quite regularly, and it's such a beautiful story as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I know your family have played a part in your swim story. So would you mind sharing a bit about your early years? Because I know you started your life in Samoa and then you went to New Zealand, is that right?
Yep, that's right. So I was born in Samoa. I think we came over when I was about 18 months. And then we came to Wellington, lived in Berempore for a little bit, and then ended up moving out to Porirua. In terms of my swim story, so I attended Porirua East School, obviously when I was little, and the school itself had a swimming pool, which was always a really exciting thing when the kids had swimming lessons and so forth. I wasn't allowed to swim, so I was one of those kids where my mum refused to give permission to allow me to swim. And it was one of those things that it was sort of quite horrible in the way it was treated back then, because if you didn't bring your togs, then you were treated as a bad child. So, we used to sit there, myself and a couple of others who didn't have swimming togs or anything, used to have to sit there, legs folded and everything, watching all these other kids having a heap of fun splashing around. So that was something that I'd been always really keen on, getting involved with, but obviously it didn't happen.
And that must have been hard because you were excluded, but also people not bothering to find out why because from your mum's perspective, it was because she was worried, right? Worried about you. So for her, it was a safety thing.
That's right. And it's quite ironic you say that, because it wasn't until much later on I learnt from, and I'll talk about him later, Seti. So he's one of the guy's based up in Auckland who has got a really big swim history with marathon swimming history with New Zealand, and he set up this Samoa swim series. Anyway, Seti, he's also of Samoan ethnicity, and he had mentioned that he wasn't allowed to swim, and I soon learnt from him that it was because it was partly a cultural thing back then. I don't think it's so much now, but there was always this fear. It's quite ironic that Samoans are surrounded by ocean, but there was always this fear to keep their children away from the ocean because of this fear that they'll drown. And so that was something that my mum always said to me. I wasn't allowed to swim because she was scared I'd drown. So yeah, it's a different one.
So
Yeah.
was it as an adult that you decided to learn to swim? Like what was there any sort of catalyst, or did something happen that make you think, okay, I'm ready to learn?
Yep, definitely. Well, I guess it was what was it? I wasn't sure. I'm not sure. I can't quite remember exactly when the catalyst was, but it was when I was in my early 30s, where my husband at the time, he was really into his swimming and would go to the pool quite a bit. And so all I would do, I could lie on my back and kick on my, kick to the other lane, the other lane while lying on my back. But anything like what is it? Water confidence, being able to tread water. I couldn't do anything like that. So really, that was the thing that sort of kicked it off. In my early 30s, I learned how to tread water. Um, then we trawled through the internet to find a way of helping me to sort of swim in some way. So I did do a wee bit of breaststroke, just looking at the way the technique is done through a website on the internet. My breaststroke is okay, but that was about it. And then in terms of the freestyle, I was pretty crap at that. So I signed up for one of the sessions they typically have at the council pools. So this was at the Pororo pool at first. The coach, it was one of those, I can't remember, 5-week programs. The coach at the time, she was ex-Olympic swimmer, apparently, very nice person. At the end of the session, I still couldn't really swim. I could kick to get to the other end, but again, it's some of those things I couldn't quite sort of grasp correctly. And then later on, when I ended up living back in Wellington, through the Wellington City Council, through their pools, I'd done a couple of sessions there. The thing that I found, though, especially with, I'm not sure, I think it's one of those things where if you're wanting to learn to swim, it's really important to actually find a really good coach. And there was things that I sort of learned around, one of the things that Barb used to tell us was that, you teach children differently from what you teach adults. And I truly understand that now, sort of based on the experience I had through the coaching through the swimming pools, through the public pools, because this time I was coached by these young teenagers who are absolutely, I'm sure they're absolutely amazing swimmers, incredible swimmers in their own right. But I guess the way they were teaching me, which was just kick full on, just full on kicking, just full on, just thrashing your arms around, that sort of thing. It was put a lot more better. I still couldn't quite get the technique right. And so for the next, it's sort of giving away my age, for the next sort of 20 years or so, I really struggled to swim like a 25-meter length in a pool. Like I'd be one of those swimmers where I'd be gasping for air once I got to the other end, and then you watch these other people just glide through and glide back, and I just wasn't sure what was happening. And then sort of later on, I've got a chance to sort of jump in the pool. I think it was one of those midlife sort of situations where I thought, okay, I want to try the ocean, and got an opportunity to jump in with a group that were practicing, and I loved it. I couldn't swim to save myself, but that's just that thing of being in that beautiful, expansive part of nature was awesome. So I thought, yep,
Was
that's definitely. Sorry.
Sorry, was that at, Freiburg Beach where you started swimming in the sea?
No,
Wellington, was it?
that was actually at Scorching Bay. So it
Ah,
was
right.
yeah, so Freiburg, I think it was a full-on northerly at the time, so they had to switch over to Scorching Bay, and so the conditions were lovely. Um, and I was in a wetsuit for the first time, couldn't breathe because the wetsuit was so tight. But yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. Um, and then I soon, realized, okay, I need to sort of work out some way to learn how to get out there, how to swim properly in order to take advantage of the swimmings, ocean swimming. And so one of my friends Nikki Bateman, so she was one of my friends from our antenatal groups. Our sons were in the same, born in the same group. And I sort of had lost touch with her, but I'd noticed her Facebook feed one day that she was doing all these amazing ocean swim events. And I know Nikki from when our children were only a few months old, that we couldn't swim properly. Like, I knew she couldn't swim properly, and I was really fascinated to find out how she actually did that. So I had eventually caught up with her, and she just said to me, "You need to see Barb." I said, "Oh, well, Barb who?" She said, "Barb Watson. You need to see her." So yeah, so that's where things started to really get more exciting for the swimming.
Oh, and so that would have been about 5 years ago, is that right?
Yeah, it's
Or
good.
maybe not even that long.
Yeah, no, I think it was just over 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened, and and the thing was is that when I rang up Barb to ask her, I said, look, gave her my history, blah 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 blah, and she sort of said, oh, you shouldn't be over kicking, blah blah blah, and this is where she said you teach adults differently from the way you teach children. So she just told me, just come along to Freiburg. So I had to try and hunt her down when I got there. This was Freiburg Beach. The conditions were beautiful. I was just absolutely in awe when I got there. I'd never seen anything before where there were so many swimmers around and there were so many people in the cold Wellington water in togs or in skins. Yeah, I was really blown away by that. Um, but yeah, went there, did a little bit, tried to sort of keep my cool, try and look good while I was trying to show her what I could do. Um, and then we went, she had mentioned to me that it's more about what you do under the water as opposed to what you do over the water, which is important. I didn't understand what she was talking about. And so she told me to come along to one of her sessions at Cannons Creek Pool. And on that one session just completely just did it for me. So she got me to it was 20 she got me to swim up one end, got up to the other end, gasping for air, came back, and then she just gave me just a couple of tips around just that quick belly breath, just breathing every second. And from that point, I was completely blown away. So from when I started the session, struggling to swim 25 meters, I could end up swimming 500 meters, just no sweat. And that was just through, again, it's just through some of the tips that she provided. Yeah, it was really blew me away.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. Such an amazing feeling, isn't it? And
Oh,
suddenly you have all
absolutely.
this freedom
Yeah.
and possibilities from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so quite quickly, from what I remember, you started entering events around the country, like the Ocean
Mhm.
Swim Series, and taking
Yeah.
things a bit further.
Yeah.
Like you were keen to keep learning and sort of
Yeah.
keep progressing. So what was that like as you started? I know you went to the Bay of Islands and Auckland, and you were doing some quite long events.
Yes, yes. So for me, the swimming, because everyone has their own swimming journey and their own reasons why. For me, it was never to compete in races. It was just to learn to swim and then get out there and enjoy it with everyone else. Um, but the thing that I found really exciting, it was almost as if once Barb sort of unwrap some of these just key things, like the breathing, and also the rotation, which was foreign to me, just, rotating the body to use that as your engine. Um, once I'd sort of she'd shown me those things, it was almost as like I was, like a young kid in a lolly shop, just so excited, just I want to try this, I want to try that. So I was sort of in that mindset. Um, but what I was keen on was more about swimming in different areas of the country that I've never been to. And I sort of thought, well, there's an event there and they've got lifeguards, and that's all I need. I just need to do that and then go from one end to the other. Um, Sort of the weekend before that Bay of Islands swim, I thought, oh, I better do some practice and do a 3K swimmer, just round and round in circles out to the first buoy at Freiburg Beach, just to sort of show that I could do it. And I thought, yep, I could do this. Yep, no sweat. Um, but I was warned about Bay of Islands being one of the harder swims because of the tidal, the strong tidal currents. I had no idea what that was like. And then I found out soon enough on that swim how swimming in the straight line is very difficult. Um, and then I know in that event there, the thing that sort of drove me to get to the other end was I actually promised Barb before I left that I would send her a text message to let her know that I made it across to the other end. And also, some of our swimming crew, like I know there's the Wellington swimming community is awesome, and some of them in particular in Barb's group, like for example, our lovely Gerard, was really really Gerard and oh, Gerard and somebody else. Sorry, they were really supportive. And just said, yeah, we'll see you across there. And so that's the thing that just kept me going. But yeah, I just the only things I had in my mind when I was swimming from one end, and it was so crooked, I think the distance is about 3.4, but it felt like to me that I may have swum 5 kilometres because about 7 times I got pulled over because I'd sort of gone veered off course, and then had to go back in. Got really bad cramp. Yeah, really, really bad cramp in both legs, but was stubborn enough to try and let that, just let it, relax it out, and then just keep going right to the end. But the main thing for me that got me through was that I kept having in the back of my mind Barb's voice, and also Bryn's voice, our lovely Bryn and Barb's group, just telling me to relax, relax, relax. And it's not necessarily relaxing the body, but it's really just relaxing myself, not being nervous, and just go with the flow, feel the water. And that's what got me through. So
That's
that,
incredible.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of other people that have done it before as well, but it's just, that was incredible. And it was yeah, it was quite. When I looked at it later, I think I was a bit shell shocked, sort of that evening, with the adrenaline and that sort of rushing through. Uh, and then I had made again, not understanding what I was signing up for. I did sign up for the Rangi Toto swim, and that was sort of 4 weeks after the Bay of Islands. And I thought, oh, holy crap, okay, it's only a kilometre and a bit more than the Bay of Islands. Surely I'll be okay. And thankfully for that particular swim, the conditions were beautiful. So, I sort of learnt quite a bit around mindset, that quite often it's not just that physical thing, it really is a mental thing as well, that sort of gets you through. So that was pretty amazing. I'd sort of done that in a few other swims. I think the most was a 5K swim, and that was all within my first year of learning how to swim, or how to swim freestyle properly. But I think one of the things that sort of came out from it from me was that, and it's it's something to be respectful of, is how we actually move our bodies. And so I had actually noticed sort of after, I think, about a year or so, that I was starting to get sore shoulders. And, the whole thing around specific areas around technique. I soon learnt later on that that was quite important. Actually,
Yeah.
very important to prevent injuries. And I was really quite surprised at that point then to find out that actually swimming is not just a gentle sport that, you know, you don't get injured in. You can actually get injured in it if you continually move in the incorrect way. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was my first year. So
That's yeah, incredible progression to go from just
um,
learning to swim freestyle to participating in the longer distance events. And
mm,
then sort of learning about your body and then dialing it back a little bit in terms of not going as far and not going as fast for a while just to get that technique right and
yes,
look after your
yeah,
body.
yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah, yeah.
I've sort of followed your journey, obviously, because I'm a bit behind where you started in some ways. And so, yeah, I remember that you were doing all these incredible events, and then um, for a while you were swimming in the slower lane in the pool, and yeah, just looking after yourself a bit more. And yeah, so that's a good role model thing to do as well. You know, not overtraining and looking after yourself. Yeah. So I know you went to Samoa and did the swim series.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that and the people you met,
Yeah.
what you learned
Yep.
there?
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. So yes. So the following year, some of our friends, some of the crew. So that was Gerard and Margaret, Adrian, Linny, James, Adrian Parker, and Fifi. So a few of us decided that we were going to go to do the Samoa Swim Series, which typically happens annually, and this is the series that SETI runs. It's a great series. It's the swims typically. So there's a number of different events. There's the marathon swim, half marathon. Um, he also does the 3, 4K swims, the island to island swims. So it's something I definitely recommend to people to go and give it a try. Uh, Sort of leading up to the training on that, SETI had advertised that they had a swim group called at One Swimming, who were offering some swim technique coaching or sessions at the Samoa event itself. And I guess thing is that with anything, and this is what I mention to my children, with anything, you know, always try and get yourself curious and you know, sort of branch out and see if you can learn other things from other people. So up until that point, I thought, oh, yep, no, I'll give them a try and see what they had to offer. And they had a program that um, which was for people that wanted to do either a 10K swim or a 5K swim. And it's a 10-week program, and you know, and it's all about joint mechanics. So a lot of their stuff that they talked about on their website was about joint mechanics. It was all about being at one with the water, being fish-like, efficiency. It had all the right buzzwords that I thought, yep, I'm going to give this a go. So I signed up with the program. In hindsight, for myself, for my learning ability, I soon realised that um, partly that online learning is not doesn't necessarily work that well for me, but there were some really good webinar sessions that we had with that where the coaches on there, they were fantastic. Tracy Bowman from Swim Mastery, and then there's Melissa and Kate as well. Just really, there was a huge amount of focus on slowing things right down, breaking the your technique right down, and just focusing on different elements of the stroke. So that was really exciting because I thought, yay, you know, this is a different approach to it for me, just breaking things right down. But it was also the other thing about the way that they taught as well is that, and again, this is going back to the way our adult brains work. And so that, you know, they operate more around teaching people cues and, you know, the whole thing around the sensations on your body, how you actually feel, you know, what's that actual feeling that you get. And that, for me, that was all quite, whoa, what are you talking about? But it really did manage to be able to connect with what they were saying. And so there were a number of things that I had hopefully had improved and noticed the improvement straight away through them. So anyway, so went through into that program, and then we met up with them when we're in doing the Samoa series itself. Um, and yeah, so that's been another bit of a journey, sort of as a another something else in my toolbox, my swim toolbox. You know, aside from what we get from Barb, been doing some sessions with Timon. I was lucky enough to do a couple of sessions much earlier on with Phil Rush, and but just all those things, you know, with these key things that we're learning from a lot of these amazing coaches. Was really, really, really incredible. Just one thing with the Samoa swim series itself, sort of just leading up to it, and that's why for me also I'm also dialing things sort of right back, and sort of started to progressively sort of work my way back up again. Um, so just the year before the Samoa swim series, my father had passed away, and so that was something that I sort of dealt with the grief, and the swimming was just my go-to place. It was just my savior, just going out there in the ocean to um, yeah, to just sort of deal with that. And then later on, um, my sister had come down with cancer, and she was one of my younger sister. And so there was that sort of side of things to sort of work through with her, you know, with her cancer journey. For me, again, the swimming was a saving grace. But when we ended up going to Samoa itself, that was sort of the time when Emma was expected to pass away. So there was quite a lot of stress happening for me at that time. And but again, the swimming was sort of helping with that. And it really took, my sister Emma was incredibly strong, and it wasn't until she would have passed around about 7 months later. And so just working with that, I sort of soon realised that actually I'd been carrying quite a lot of stress for quite a lot of time, and it actually impacted my swimming, but not in a positive way, and more in a negative way. And
Mm.
you know, I went to see the doctors, went to check out, make sure everything was okay. And so physically I was fine, but I soon realized that, you know, the amount of stress sort of being carried for a long period of time, you sort of don't realize how much it impacts your breathing, and yeah, and just being able to settle in yourself. I soon realized that actually I need to sort of dial this right back. Now really focus on spending that time in the water, you know, again, just being close to nature. And yeah, that's really helped. And so with the swimming side of things, just the main thing I'm focusing on now is really technique. The technique side is really helping a lot. And yeah, and then just doing smaller distances, and just enjoying it with friends. So yeah, so it's something we just need to build up on. But yeah, I think we all go through it. But yeah, it's one of those
Yeah.
things.
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I mean, I'm so sorry about your dad and your sister.
Oh,
And
right.
it's I know it because I've just lost my father-in-law who I love dearly. Yeah,
Yeah.
swimming it helps us, you know, cope with grief, but at the same time, yeah, swimming is a very physical thing,
Mm.
and you really notice the toll that the grief can take on you emotionally and physically. And yeah, so you
Yeah.
do have to sort of give yourself permission, or at least recognize that maybe we can't swim quite as far,
Yeah.
you know, when we're going through some sort of challenge. And you see it with other people we swim with as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people have their own health problems, don't they? And they sort of disappear for a while, and then they come back,
Absolutely.
or they don't come back to swimming, but they come back for coffees and
Yes.
stay
Yeah.
part of the community. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, the longer you swim, the more you see everybody having sort of their own lives alongside the swimming, and the swimming is sort of this one nice constant,
Yeah.
that, you know, once you're sort of part of the swim community, you feel like you're always part of it, whether you're just dipping or, you know, competing or having adventure swims or just,
Yeah.
you know, whatever people are doing. But yeah, it's really a changing thing, isn't it? Like sometimes you feel like $1 million and like you could just swim forever.
Yeah.
then something in your life might happen, and just kind of getting in the water's enough for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely it. Yeah, you're definitely right, Shona.
Yeah.
Um, and I think just the most recent swim adventure that we both went to, the Yogi Fish one up in Lee. Um, Again, that was fabulous because, there was enough swimming in there if you wanted to be out there in nature, and out there with, again, a lot of new friends. Um, but there was also, things I've loved about that as well as that there was a lot of centering. So the breath work just reminded me about how valuable meditation is, which is something I used to do a long time ago, and just come back and just center back on that to calm not just my breathing, but to calm everything else. And then just all that, the thing around with the yoga and the Pilates, some of the strength work to work into that, but work in with your breathing. So I've just found that, even though it's only been a couple of weeks since we got back, but I've just found that that's been really beneficial as well, and feeding back into the swimming
Oh,
around
that's
just to
awesome.
help all of that. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
just from that, again, it's that whole thing from the inside out, not just in the swimming, but also from, as yourself for your own well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
getting
a
that
really
more.
good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
yeah, we've learned a lot about, especially when you're starting out on a long swim, about just kind of grounding yourself and taking
yeah,
breaths. And
yes.
yeah, especially when you're doing a longer swim, no matter where you are or who you're doing with, there's always a bit of sort of a buzz at the beginning, because you're in a new location, and, maybe new people, and you're making sure you've got your goggles and, all the
Oh,
bits and pieces, like your earplugs. And there's just sort of this tension, isn't there? And like everybody's getting in, and, you're about to start, and just taking those sort of exhales and just relaxing your body a bit.
yeah,
Yeah, really just means that you can feel more grounded, and enjoy the swim, most importantly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
it is really useful learning all the breathing techniques and things that
Oh,
we've been learning the
definitely,
last few years. Because
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, because we're land mammals, especially, like just learning how to sort of cope in water, like to not only stay alive, but also, sort of conserve your air so you're not running out of running out
Yeah,
of oxygen after a few minutes.
exactly.
Things that sound really basic, but I remember when I first started learning to swim, and I had to be told to breathe. It's like being told
Yeah.
you can actually breathe whenever you want. And that
Yeah,
was a
that's
real
so
revelation,
true.
because I was putting my face in the water and going, and holding my breath. And of course,
Oh,
like, you can barely swim a few minutes that way, and then
oh, yes.
yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there is a whole heap to it, isn't there? That's not just physical, but yeah, the psychological and everything else you can think of that. Yeah, you need to take into consideration. So,
Because it looks quite
mm,
simple. When you watch someone swim well, it's like, wow, that looks really
mm,
easy. And when you're doing it
yeah,
yourself, yeah,
yeah.
it's
And I,
a
and I
process.
think, as we also found out, especially with a lot of being fortunate to have video analysis and that done, that you think you're doing well, and it's like, oh, I didn't realize my arms were doing, the complete opposite than what it should do.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's right.
yeah, yeah, the whole thing's been quite an amazing learning journey, and I think especially just in the really the last 18 months or so, or nearly 2 years, especially with the swim mastery stuff around, that whole aspect of the swimmer and the way that we learn, the
Yeah.
language we use, and that's been really, been
And the way
pretty
we keep
powerful.
learning, that's one
Yes.
thing I enjoy about it. It's like you're never
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
more to learn.
Exactly. It's not until when once we all swim to the big blue
Yeah.
lagoon in the sky. That's
Yeah. I like the way you put that. It sounds like a continuation of our swimming.
yeah.
One thing I was going to ask you about is a couple of years ago, you made the decision to stop wearing a wetsuit, which I
Oh,
know is a
yeah.
process some people go through. Some people keep their wetsuits, and that's fine, but
Yeah,
others,
that's totally
just
fine.
quietly decide to shed it. And
Mm.
in Wellington, that's quite a remarkable thing, because in the winter, the water temperature gets to about 9 or 10 degrees. So did you sort of one day just make this decision that you weren't going to wear a wetsuit anymore, or did it come about more
Yeah.
slowly?
I think it was sort of forced on me. So I think one of the things you're right. There's completely nothing wrong with wearing a wetsuit. It's they're awesome things. I actually miss wearing it, especially when we're swimming out. Spending quite a bit of time in Oriental Bay, and it's that whole thing when you can swim and just chat to friends at the different buoys and have a laugh. Because what I soon notice with the when you're swimming in skins is you can't chat too long. You just got to keep going. Um, but so and for me as well, there was always that feeling of just feeling like I'm swimming in something. I'm not, yes, just not being able to connect to the water. But it was actually forced on me because what I'd noticed ever since like my first longest swim. Out to in the Bay of Islands, and subsequently up to there, I kept getting really bad cramp on my legs, and especially it was all the way up from my thigh, all the way down to my leg. And I remember talking to Barb once, especially after the Wellington swim series event they had there, and I said after 1 kilometre, I just felt like I was going to cramp up straight away, and I sort of felt that maybe the wetsuit, because the wetsuit itself tends to well, for me, I'm too floaty, so even if I was to kick, I can't because my legs go out of the water, and yeah, and I think it's just the way that for some people, it's the way it just holds your body in quite a taut position. And so I talked to Barb about it, and I said, "Oh, maybe I should get rid of the wetsuit." She said, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah, maybe you should give it a try." You know what Barb's like.
Yeah.
And yeah, and she was really good. She said, "We'll support you through it, make sure you don't get too cold, blah, blah, blah." And so, yeah, so that's when I made the decision. I knew that the only way you can do it is you have to, yeah, do it slowly, but commit to it each bit. Because, from what we've seen from other amazing, and our other amazing friends that swim in skins all year long, and there's all these amazing marathon swimmers amongst ourselves, amongst our group, that it's achievable. You can do it, and so yeah, so I just did it in the first year. I thought, wow, that wasn't so bad. And then when you hit into summer, yeah, it felt much better. But it was just that, and I know a lot of other people listening will agree who are skin swimmers, is that it's that feel of the water, which is pretty awesome. It means for me that I really need to make sure I've engaged my core properly, because I'm not relying on the wetsuit. That's for me to get me through. But yeah, it's just that feel of the water. And this winter will be my third winter going through the skins, and it's so true. It does get easier, as you progress through it. I'm just in
That,
awe of
that's
some of the
amazing.
guys that do those ice miles.
Yeah.
I couldn't do
That's
that.
a whole other level of cold
Oh,
water endurance, isn't it?
absolutely,
Oh my goodness.
absolutely.
So if you've been for a swim in winter with no wetsuit, then how do you
Mm,
warm up afterwards? Um,
yeah, that's it. Um, so, so I don't, if it's during winter, so I just go and try and get myself changed as quickly as possible. Get out the wet togs, and then just pile on all the warm thermals. I normally have about 7 layers,
wow.
with the big with the big coat over the top,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then just head down to to our lovely local to have our coffee and cheese gone.
Yeah.
so, so yeah,
So hot drink and some good food.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And because you're swimming a few times a week in the sea, also
Mhm.
wanted to ask you about your Wednesday mornings. I know you quite often swim in the sea
Um,
on a Wednesday, and as we're now heading into autumn and winter, the mornings are getting darker. So
mm.
what's it like swimming in the dark? Because a lot of people don't do that. Um,
Oh dear, and I can totally understand why. um, yeah, so it's I think it's you've just again it's one of those things you just got to block your mind out around the fact that when you're in that water, actually you can't see anything, which in a lot of ways is a good thing. Um, Yeah, it depends. So I think initially when I started off, with the wee lamp, um, it was okay. It was actually fine. I think for me that my biggest fear was actually smacking into the buoy because you can't see the buoys in the dark. Although I know that our lovely harbour master has put a few little wee lights on some of the main buoys, but yeah, it's very difficult to see. Um, so it was fine. I knew that because in those mornings, at the time, Mark was out there with Brett. So I knew those guys were out there somewhere, all the way out in the lighthouse, maybe. And I was just doing my first buoy stint. I knew they were out there somewhere, and Barb was watching from the car. So I felt more relaxed around it then. And I think the hardest times would be when you're swimming in the dark and there's chop, when there's quite full on chop. Again, it's just you really do have to focus in on the feel of the water because obviously you can't see anything, but with the movement of the water, I found I was more connected with it. Um, but if anything, the huge benefit of doing it in the early hours of the morning is just that morning sunrise, being able to see that, just seeing the glow of the sunrise coming up at that time. When you get in and you swim out, say, to the first buoy, and as I sort of overturn a wee bit while I'm breathing, you can look up and see the stars and the moon. And then when you're traveling all the way back, you look across and you can see the sunrise coming up. And that's just an amazing feeling to start your day off. I mean, we're very fortunate in Wellington that we don't get too many big hungry sharks sort of in the, the water
Right?
at
Yeah.
the time, unlike Sydney and Brisbane.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty special. And I think the most special one swim we've had like that fairly recently was last year, the Matariki swim. There was a few of us that went out. The water was freezing cold, but it was just the most beautiful sunrise. It was
Oh,
amazing.
that's
Mm.
incredible. Yeah. And you're seeing it from a perspective that most people don't
Mm.
get to see it from, right? You're in the
Yeah,
water. Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
that's
You
right.
mentioned sharks and how we don't see many of them here. Have
Mm.
have you had any sort of encounters with marine life while you've been swimming?
Yeah, quite a few. So I'm really fortunate that I live in the beautiful Orfedal Bay Parade, and so and we're actually on the coastline, so we've got an amazing wee ocean pool in front of our place, and because it's a marine reserve right across this whole area, when you go out there straight away, so it's just incredible the seaweed, the sea life. So there'd be a whole bunch of stuff, huge crays, which you're not allowed to touch. There's octopus out the front of our place somewhere. Yeah, huge fish, a lot of fish and that swimming around. So just within the area that I'm here, when I go out to do my bit of a morning swim, see quite a bit of that. I haven't seen much sea life apart from the starfish and the jellyfish, our famous jellyfish in Oriental Bay. Haven't seen much there, maybe the odd stingray, but I think there was that time when we went to Heron Island, and that was amazing. Just being able to, just to see these dorsal fins sort of swimming around while we were actually in the water with those sharks. That was pretty incredible. I guess in some ways it was quite exciting, quite fearful, but also okay because from what we've been told from the scientists, that there's plenty of other food for these beautiful creatures
That's
to
right.
to to look at, that they wouldn't be interested in us. So that experience around Heron Island was amazing.
It
That
was so
to see sea
beautiful.
turtles and those huge stingrays it's just incredible.
It was
Except for the
like swimming in
jellyfish.
an aquarium, wasn't it? Yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
explain for listeners. Heron Island is a little marine park in Queensland, southern Great Barrier Reef. Yeah, so it was warm water and
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of marine life around the island, and yeah, we were very lucky to swim there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that too. Well, we're getting close to winding up, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked you?
Uh, no, I don't. No, I don't think so. I'm just thinking about in terms of the swimming stuff. No, not really.
Oh,
No, I think it's
no,
good.
no pressure, but are there any swim goals you have that you'd like to?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to swim the Cook Straight.
Would you? No, well, I'll book you in for.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm not sure. Like, I'd love to do a 10K, but, again, it's just, and if it happens, it's just when I'm ready,
Yeah,
and it's just getting, being ready for that. And
yeah,
again, it's if it happens. But no, not necessarily. I think it's just more about, I guess for me, improving my technique more. So again, it's being able to do these longer distances, and when I mean longer, I mean going up to about over the 5K. So the 10K mark, and being able to not feel exhausted afterwards from what we've learnt, through some of the stuff with swim mastery and so forth. So yeah, just trying to improve my technique to that point where you can go off and just swim anywhere, keep swimming, and not feel exhausted about it. Just feel relaxed as you get out of the water. Yeah, and just enjoy. I think just enjoy every day, really. Every day that comes along.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Toy, and it's always a privilege to talk to you about swimming. And I hope we can keep swimming together for a long time to come.
I'm
So
sure we will.
we always have a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to this episode of Swim Chats. Please hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.